I guess we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Rostosi, would you like to lead us?
Sure.
Okay, go right ahead.
I pledge
I
allegiance
pledge
to
the flag
United States
of the United States of America,
and to
to the republic for which it
to the
stands,
republic for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible and justice for all.
with liberty and
with liberty,
justice.
justice for all. Great job, thank you. Well, let me start by thanking all of you for being able to attend this morning. It was obviously a very quickly called meeting. The reason for it is the decision by the governor to put the issue of whether or not to mandate masks in public, to put that issue back into the hands of the cities as opposed to making it a statewide decision. So we've had a variety of communications. I've had communications with a variety of mayors across the Southwest Valley, and there was a strong feeling, I would say, by every mayor, with only one exception that I'm aware of at the moment on the west side, that it was a good idea to mandate masks in public as a way of slowing the spread of COVID-19. I think we're all concerned, significantly concerned, that if we don't slow the spread in some of these steps that while they may not be entirely desirable, if we don't take some steps like this to slow the spread, we're going to end up back in a situation where our hospitals are threatened with overcapacity, and we may have to shut the economy down, which none of us want to do, and we don't want to see that happen. We don't want the economic harm that comes to so many people from that kind of an action. So this is a step that is intended to try to slow the spread and keep us from the situation where our hospitals do not have the capacity to treat individuals that need to be treated. I'm sure each of you follow the data closely, and we can see every day that the number of new cases, number of new people testing positive has gone up significantly. I can remember several weeks ago when it was unusual to see 300 new cases a day, and then it became unusual to see 400 or 500 new cases a day. I remember the shock I had when maybe 2 weeks ago we saw 1,600 new cases. I was happy when the numbers came down after that 1,600. It came down to as low as 1,000 cases a new day. So our new at that point our new normal was going from 200 or 300 a day to being happy that we only had 1,000 that day. So obviously we had changed, or at least my perspective had changed fairly quickly. Unfortunately, after that 1,000 case day, we steadily went back up to 1,300, 1,600, 2,300. So within the last 2 weeks, probably one of the greatest concerns is within the last 2 weeks, Maricopa County reported yesterday that the total number of cases in Maricopa County increased by 63% in 2 weeks. So that is obviously not the right trend that we want to see. We definitely have more people in the hospitals. Again, we got data from Maricopa County yesterday on hospitalizations, both general hospitalizations and ICU bed hospitalizations. And while they're not at the crisis stage potentially yet, the trends are very poor. They're very bad. And ICU, as an example, ICU availability without going to the surge availability, ICU availability is down to about 11 or 12%, I think was the number I remember from yesterday. So while we still have some room in our ICUs, it's much lower than what you would normally want. And I know from talking to my daughter, who is a nurse in the Banner system, that the nursing supply is very overtaxed at this point. And so as we put more load on our hospitals, we may have space but we may not have people in terms of nurses to take care of the patients that are needed. So I think it's important that we take action to try to slow the spread and to try to do it in a way that maintains as much economic activity as we possibly can. So I asked staff to work on a resolution to mandate masks in public. I asked them to work with our city attorney, Susan Goodwin, and to look at what other cities were doing. There is an effort amongst the cities on the west side to try to let each other know what actions we're taking so that those actions can be consistent city to city. If we take action today, I'm also going to send this to our county supervisor, because the county supervisors are looking at adopting a policy, I think, this afternoon also. And I'm hopeful that, if we take action and the other cities take action, that all of the actions together are reasonably consistent. They won't be identical, but if they're at least reasonably consistent, it will be less confusing to the public at large. So we tried to coordinate what we were looking at, and I also felt, while I believe I have the authority to make this declaration without the council's input, I didn't think this was a decision that should be made without council's input. So for that reason, I called this special meeting so we could discuss the resolution itself, so we could have a vote of the council and, test to make sure that the council supported these actions, and make it a council action as opposed to an action by one individual. So with that, I think everyone here has a copy of the resolution itself and has had time to look at it. We've had, I've had some individual input from the vice mayor, and I don't know if the vice mayor is on now or not. I don't know his number, so he would be calling in if he was. So, do you know, Mr. City Clerk, is the vice mayor on?
There is a phone number I don't recognize, but I don't see his name here. Okay.
So the vice mayor had sent in an email saying that he's generally supported this action, and I've also had a number of letters or emails from residents. I wouldn't say it was an overwhelming number, but a significant number for such a relatively short period of time since the governor's decision. And those residents are mostly in favor of doing something. I did have one resident who voiced some concern. So with that, I'd like to hear from the council and get your input.
I'll start.
Looks like Councilman Donahue. Got to get you unmuted.
Unmute. Hear me?
Okay.
Anyway, so
Yes.
I had some conversation or by text with Tom and Bill. So I've been in Coronado for 3 weeks, where they're really good with mask etiquette here. I have to say, I know California is spiking, but that's in LA. And in particular, my concern is just in this resolution under public spaces. The only thing I saw that I think we need to look at is under indoors, when it mentions restaurants and bars, and it says in the middle there, coverings are not required when eating or drinking at a table for a short period of time or walking through the restaurant. Face coverings are required when using public restrooms. My concern is that that's not specific enough. And here, what we're seeing here, which I think has worked really well, is you wear that mask when you come in and you wear it all the way to the table. You, of course, take it off at the table because you need to eat. If you go to the bathroom in that restaurant, you put it back on, and they have all sorts of signs here. I talked to the general manager of the Henry here, which, Sam Fox knows it, and they said that that's absolutely their situation here at all the restaurants. My concern is if we freely, if we don't mention this and make it more specific, people can come in, they can have a mask on, and they can take it off, and they go to the bathroom, and they don't have to have it on. I think that we're asking for something, because we'll have mostly people using restaurants in our town. So just my input on that, I think that we need to lead rather than follow with that one. So since we have so few restaurants, et cetera, I think, and Peter, I've heard from Peter, and he had a very legit situation, and it was especially going from the table to the bathroom. I think they need to put it back on. I mean, anyone can sneeze and cough at that point, and I think that's pretty legit. So just my input.
I'm sorry, what I didn't understand what input you'd gotten from Mr. Mahoney.
Was that, and he didn't know about this. He was just asking me, and I said, we haven't done anything yet. I literally was driving back from Arizona yesterday. I said, we're going to look at that tomorrow. And he said, well, I especially want to know, like, obviously they aren't going to have the mask on at the table, but what if they go to the bathroom? He just asked me. I thought about it. And then after I received the resolution, I saw
Right.
that, and I thought, because his isn't a public restroom. This is a restroom in a restaurant, so anyway.
Yeah, that was something that we actually had some conversation. I had some discussion with staff on that, and it was discussion about what was being required in California concerning the wearing of masks while you were moving about a restaurant as opposed to sitting at the table, and that California had done this and that it seemed to work. Is there do I have other input from the council? Councilor Stossel, you look like you have something you'd like to say, maybe?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I would just echo Ann's comments. I was in California earlier this month and went to restaurants where masks are required if you're moving around the restaurant, like she described. If you're at your table, you're fine, but if you get up from your table, you got to put your mask on. And as a customer in a restaurant, I have to admit it made me feel comfortable that the other people there who I didn't know were wearing a mask if they were walking. So I would just echo Ann's comments and agree with her input.
Okay. Comments from other council member. Councilor Romack, you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah,
Looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would agree with Tom and Ann. I think that it makes sense that we wear the mask as we move around or about inside the restaurant. I think that the signage is going to be important, that people understand what's expected of them, and that's one of the things that Ann mentions, the signage in the restaurants over in California. And I would want to be sure that the people understand what's expected of them. Also, for the restaurant owners or managers, those people that are given the responsibility of enforcing this, they have to be, I think, very clear of what our expectation is. But otherwise, I think that's personally the right direction.
Okay. Councilman Clare, you have anything you'd like to say?
I'm just in agreement. I feel that anything we can do to limit the exposure is the right way to go about this. So I wholeheartedly agree with Ann, Tom, and John.
Lisa, Councilman Brainerd Watson, would you like to say anything? I've unmuted you if you would.
I came late to this. I didn't see the email. I'm in support of it as well. Can you clarify one thing for me? And again, it's my fault for being late. Does this extend beyond restaurants to retail establishments? Or like this was a conversation we had today on at our meeting for the museum, for the Historical Society. Would we be expecting organizations to do that?
It applies to individuals anytime they're outside of their home, living unit, or other place of residence.
Perfect.
So if they're indoors, and if another person is present within 6 feet, then they have to have on a mask. It pretty much covers everything. If they're outdoors, then they have to have it on again if there are people within 6 feet. So if you're out going for a walk by yourself, then you probably don't need a mask, or riding your bike. But if you're in a group of people that are that are at the park or otherwise together, then yes, the idea is yes, when you're out of doors, you'd have a mask on also. Is that correct, Ms. City Attorney? She's shaking her head. Yes. Okay. So is there a motion to authorize the execution of this resolution, declaration, see what we called it?
It's a resolution of the council, so it'd be adoption of a resolution.
So is there a motion to adopt the resolution of the mayor and council as presented at the meeting with the modification that we will make the statements under public spaces A1 more specific so that it's clear what is intended at restaurants? And we will add a provision, if it's not in here, we'll add a provision under, it would be 5C probably, that would require businesses to post signage to explain this requirement of masks to their customers in a clear and concise manner. Oh, yes, Ms. City Attorney.
I was trying to follow the conversation regarding the clarification. And I don't know that I understand, because it does say face coverings are not required when eating or drinking at a table for a short period of time or walking through the,
Yes.
oh, that's the problem. I got it.
Yeah.
So the wording just needs to be made a little more specific.
So
The
they have
concept,
to-
I think, is in there.
They have to wear masks when they're walking through the restaurant.
I think we'll make it more of a positive statement as opposed to kind of a negative statement. So we can fix that, I think, before we put this out.
Okay.
Councilman Donahue.
Actually, and I started yesterday, but I'm happy to pass on every place of employment here. The Dell's opening next week, all the restaurants, and I've taken pictures of a number of signs just to share, because some of them have better wording than others. But if that helps some of our clients in Litchfield come up with wording, there's some that are very clear. Anyway.
If you have good material on that, if you could get that to Matthew Williams, because Matthew
Okay.
will be communicating with our businesses and he can provide some examples of signage.
Yeah, some are classier than others, but there's some really good
Yeah.
ones. Why not? Why recreate the wheel?
Give everybody some ideas. So, do we have a motion to adopt this resolution of the mayor and council with the modifications that we've discussed concerning a more specific description of the requirements for masks in restaurants and signage?
So moved.
Second move I have a motion by Councilman Clare and a second by Councilman Donahue. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? If not, all those in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I can see everyone except Councilwoman Watson. What is your vote, Councilwoman?
I said aye.
Okay, I can't see you, so I need to make it clear for the record that what the votes are. I believe that there's 6 of us in attendance, and so we had 6 ayes. Are there any nays? If so, please so designate. By seeing no nays, then we'll declare the resolution as adopted by the mayor and council by unanimous vote, with one council person, the vice mayor, not in attendance, but having said that he does support the motion itself. Is there anything further from any council member? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Rostosi, seconded by
I'll second that.
Second.
Councilman Donahue. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Again, thank you for getting together early this morning to take this under consideration. I appreciate the sacrifices you all make. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.